Hey, welcome back to thezakulo. This week we are looking at three open source projects that each solve a different problem. First up, Waypay, a platform for testing and evaluating the quality of AI web games. Then VSVS them, which tracks inline level provenance in text that have been through agentic editing. So you can tell which lines you wrote versus which ones the agents did, all derived from version history. And finally, ECC, an agent harness that layers scale, memory, and security across tools like code, codex, cursor, and more. Let's get into it.
Let's start with the newest projects, repos that showed up this week. So here's WAI Play, and I think this one flew under a lot of radars this week. At its core, it's a platform that points AI at web games and actually plays them, not just checking if buttons render, but evaluating quality the way a human tester might. Does the game feel responsive? Does the difficulty curve make sense? That's a genuinely hard problem, because games aren't deterministic forms you fill out. They're loops of state and feedback. What makes this interesting is the timing. We're drowning in AI-generated games right now, and nobody's really solved how to QA them at scale. Traditional test frameworks like Selenium or Playwright check that things work. WAI Play tries to judge whether they're any good. That's a different question entirely. It's Python, so it slots into most existing pipelines without much friction. If you're shipping browser games or building game gen tooling, this is worth a serious look. 250 stars this early tells me developers see the gap too. If you like catching these before they blow up, the newsletter link's in the description. So here's something that scratches an itch a lot of us have been feeling. PyBook is basically a living set of architecture notes on building an agent, and the key word in that description is source-backed. Every claim traces back to something real, a paper, a repo, a working implementation, instead of the usual vibes-based blog post that tells you agents are magic and then leaves you guessing. What I appreciate here is the honesty about trade-offs. Most agent tutorials show you the happy path. This reads more like the notebook of someone who actually shipped and hit the walls. Memory, tool routing, when to let the model plan, versus when to hardcode the flow. It's built in Vue, so it renders as a browsable knowledge base rather than a wall of markdown, which makes it genuinely nice to reference mid-project. If you're past the Hello World agent phase and building something people depend on, this is a better companion than yet another framework. If you like finds like this, the newsletter link is in the description. That's where the deeper breakdowns live. Kadith takes a genuinely different swing at the agent problem. Instead of you hand-tuning prompts and wiring up orchestration by trial and error, it treats agents like a population, spawning variants, scoring them against your goal, and letting the strong ones carry traits forward across epochs. It's evolutionary search applied to autonomous agents, and the reproducibility angle is the part I'd flag. Because each epoch is deterministic and logged, you can actually rerun a convergence and understand why a particular agent won, which is more than most agent frameworks give you. Where this fits, it's less a competitor to something like LangGraph or CrewAI and more a layer above them. You're optimizing agent configurations rather than just running one. That makes it a fit for researchers and teams chasing a measurable objective, not folks who just need a chatbot shipped by Friday. At 169 stars, it's early, so expect rough edges and a moving API. If you want more repos worth watching before they blow up, the newsletter link's in the description. Go grab it. Now, the ones the hacker news crowd couldn't stop talking about. Here's a problem you've probably felt without naming it. You hand a document to an agent, it does its thing, and later you're staring at a paragraph wondering, did I write that? Or did the model? Us versus Them tackles exactly this. It gives you line-level provenance, tracking who authored each line, human or agent, and it derives that from version history, rather than stuffing comments or markers into the file itself. That last part is the clever bit. No polluting your source with inline annotations that break tooling or leak into output. The truth lives in the history, where it belongs. It's written in Closure, which tells you something about the audience. Folks who care about clean data models and reproducibility over flashy dashboards. Compared to Git Blame, This understands the human versus machine distinction Git never will. If you're building agentic editing workflows and worried about accountability or review, this is worth a look. For more finds like this every week, the newsletter link is in the description. This week's Spotlight zooms in on one corner of AI. So this week, we're looking at ECC. And the pitch here is a little different from our usual agent framework. Instead of building yet another chatbot wrapper, ECC treats your coding agent like a system that needs tuning. Skills, instincts, memory, and security, all bolted onto tools you're probably already running, like Claude Code, Codex, Cursor, and OpenCode. What I find interesting is the instincts layer. Most harnesses give the model raw context and hope for the best. ECC seems to want opinionated defaults baked into the loop, a research-first workflow before the agent starts editing your files. That's a meaningful contrast to something like plain MCP setups, which give you plumbing but leave the discipline up to you. Who's this for? Devs who've moved past the demo phase and are actually shipping with agents daily, and who feel the pain when memory resets or a tool goes rogue. If breakdowns like this are your thing, the newsletter goes deeper every week. Links in the description. So Hermes Agent from News Research crossed 228,000 stars. And honestly, that number alone tells you something shifted in how people think about agents. The tagline is, the agent that grows with you. And what that actually means in practice is persistent memory and behavioral adaptation baked in from the start. It's not just wrapping an LLM in a loop and calling it a day. Where a lot of agent frameworks give you a scaffolding and leave the state management as your problem, Hermes leans into continuity. It remembers your patterns across sessions, which makes it a better fit for long-running personal assistants than one-shot task runners. If you've been juggling LangChain or AutoGPT and feeling the friction of rebuilding context every time, this is worth a serious look. It's Python, so it slots into most existing stacks cleanly. Just be honest about the trade-off. Persistent memory means you own the privacy and storage decisions. If you want the full breakdown and this week's other picks, the newsletter link is in the description. Firecrawl is one of those tools that quietly solves a problem you've probably been hacking around for years. If you've ever tried to feed live web data into an LLM, you know the pain. Brittle scrapers, JavaScript-heavy pages that don't render, rate limits, and messy HTML that needs a dozen cleanup passes before it's usable. Firecrawl handles that whole pipeline. It crawls, renders, and returns clean, structured markdown that's basically ready to drop into your context window. What sets it apart from something like Playwright or a raw Puppeteer setup is the intent. This isn't a general browser automation library, it's purpose-built for AI ingestion, with search and structured extraction baked in. That makes it a natural fit if you're building RAG pipelines, research agents, or anything that needs fresh web context at scale. The TypeScript codebase is approachable if you want to self-host, and there's a managed option if you'd rather not babysit infrastructure. If you like finding tools before they hit your feed, the newsletter link's in the description. Go grab it. These are the repos gaining stars the fastest right now. So, Prime Agent from Prime Intellect is pulling attention this week. And the interesting part isn't the autonomous coding agent label. We've seen plenty of those. It's the RLM angle, the reinforcement learning loop that lets the agent actually adjust its behavior based on outcomes across long-running tasks, rather than just replaying the same prompt chain and hoping. That's a meaningful distinction. Most agents you'll find today are stateless orchestrators wrapped around an API. This one is trying to close the feedback loop so it improves over a session, not just within a single response. It's written in TypeScript, which makes it approachable if you're already living in a Node toolchain and want to embed it rather than shell out to a Python framework. Who's it for? Teams comfortable letting an agent run for hours on refactors or migrations, not folks wanting a quick autocomplete. Compared to something like an off-the-shelf coding copilot, this trades polish for autonomy and control. Early days, so watch the churn. If you want more picks like this each week, the newsletter link is in the description. OmniRoute is tackling something everyone has hit. You're deep in a session, your provider throttles you, and suddenly you're dead in the water. This is an MIT-licensed gateway that puts one endpoint in front of 290-plus providers and 500-plus models, with quota-aware fallback, so when Claude hits a limit, It quietly rolls you over to something else and keeps you moving. What caught my eye is the token compression. They claim 15 to 95% savings depending on your payload, which matters a lot if you're paying per token or leaning on free tiers. It drops into Claude Code, Cursor, Klein, Copilot, the usual suspects, so there's no rewrite. Compared to something like Light LLM or OpenRouter, the differentiator here is the free tier orchestration and the failover logic being front and center, not an afterthought. It's early, 76 stars this week, so vet it before production, but for hobbyists and side project builders, it's worth a look. If you like these early finds before they blow up, the newsletter's linked in the description. Here's one that caught my eye if you spend time in security research. Reverse Skill is a skill router pack. Think of it as connective tissue between your AI coding assistant and the messy reality of reverse engineering and authorized pen testing work. The clever bit isn't the AI itself, it's the routing layer. You describe a task, it figures out which skill applies, then bootstraps the toolchain on demand instead of forcing you to pre-install a bloated kit. And it plugs into Claude Code, Kiro, Cursor, Klein, so you're not locked to one client. Compared to the sprawling all-in-one security frameworks, this feels more surgical. It's a dispatcher, not a Swiss Army knife you never fully learn. The self-evolving knowledge base is the interesting long-term play. If it genuinely accumulates context across sessions, that's real leverage. Big caveat, PowerShell first, and the word authorized is doing heavy lifting. Know your scope, keep it legal. If you want more finds like this every week, the newsletter link is in the description. And finally, the teams shipping the hardest this week. Orca calls itself an ADE, an agent development environment, and that framing is worth pausing on. Most tooling right now assumes you're babysitting one coding agent at a time, tab open, watching it think. Orca flips that. It's built for running a whole fleet in parallel. And critically, you plug in your own subscription rather than paying a middleman markup on tokens. That's a real cost story for anyone already carrying a Claude or GPT plan. The desktop and mobile angle is the sleeper feature here. Kicking off agent runs from your phone, checking progress on a walk, that's a workflow shift, not just a port. Compared to something like a terminal-bound agent or a single VS Code extension, Orca is betting orchestration becomes the actual job. 155 commits this week tells me it's early and moving fast, so expect rough edges. Best fit for developers comfortable managing concurrent, semi-autonomous work. We break down repos like this every week. The newsletter link's in the description if you want the shortlist early. Okay, so here's a problem a lot of us have quietly accepted. Your coding tools are married to whoever built them. Codex wants OpenAI, Claude Code wants Anthropic, and switching means rewiring your whole workflow. OpenCodex sits in the middle as a translation layer, so you point Codex CLI or Claude Code at it, and it routes to whatever backend you actually want. Gemini, Grok, DeepSeek, even a local Ollama model on your own machine. What makes this practical is that it speaks the native protocols, so your existing tooling doesn't know anything changed. That matters for cost, for privacy if you're keeping things local, and for anyone stuck behind a corporate model policy. Compared to something like Light LLM, this is narrower and more opinionated. It's specifically about keeping these two agentic coding front ends usable, not a general gateway. And 123 commits this week tells me the maintainer is moving fast, while providers keep shifting their APIs. If proxy layer tooling like this is your thing, the newsletter breaks down more of these every week. Okay, so here's one I want to be honest with you about upfront. Hadian, from OpenCity AI, is listed as an HTML project, and the description is about as sparse as they come. But what caught my eye is the pace. 89 commits in a single week. That's not a dead repo someone parked and forgot. That's someone in the trenches, building something out loud, day after day. When you see that kind of velocity on an early-stage project, it usually means one of two things. Either it's a fast-moving prototype finding its shape, or a solo maintainer with a very clear vision and no committee slowing them down. Both are worth watching. The HTML tag suggests a front-end or docs-heavy layer, possibly a UI for some city-focused AI tooling given the org name. My honest advice? Star it, watch it, but read the actual code before you build on it. Early repos move fast and break things. If you want the fuller write-up and the rest of this week's picks, the newsletter link's in the description.